Welcome to another edition of Interruptions. I'm your host, Otis Smith. Today, I got another treat for you guys. I have another brilliant actor. I put him on the same vein. When I say this name, he's probably going to be like, what? But I put him in the same vein of as a Bill Dukes. You might have seen this
Uh-huh.
man in Life. You might have seen this man in Another 48 Hours. But what really impressed me about this wonderful actor is a movie everyone needs to see called A Lesson Before Dying.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Brent Jennings, how you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem. Hey, listen, I let everybody know I champion my dog skin people. So I got. You see all this light on me now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
put that light on. I always tell people, I said, if you want to win, you got to go dog skin. So
yeah. We got to look out for each other.
we gotta look. Hey, we gotta look out for each other. I remember a time we weren't too popular.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
uh, well, my first question for you is because you're from Arkansas, right?
Little Rock.
Little Rock. So when you were growing up, did you see yourself, especially where you come from in Arkansas, did you see yourself becoming an actor as brilliant as you are? Was that a dream of yours growing up?
Well, it was, but it was given to me by a sixth grade teacher.
Okay,
And
okay,
I went to a school called Wrightsville Elementary, which isn't, active anymore. And they used to do a yearly show called the Wrightsville Follies. It was
okay,
kind of like based on the old vaudeville shows where they had
okay.
like the girls in a line, and they were like the Rockettes or
The
something. They
Rocket,
put
okay.
their feet up, but they're all junior high, I mean elementary school kids, so it's meant to be cute, I guess. And then at the end of each line were two guys called the end men. I
Okay.
guess the end of the line.
Okay. Okay.
And there were two on each end, and in between the girls' numbers, the guys would get up and tell jokes and sing a song, or do a little something, to keep, a different energy. It was
Okay.
kind of, I guess, based on those kind of shows like back in the day when you had the on 125th Street, you had the Apollo with Pig Meat Markham and
Okay.
Mom's Mabley, those
Miles
shows that used to
Mabley.
tour the South,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. So, uh, and we used to rehearse in the cafeteria,
Okay.
and back in that day, uh, the school was an elementary school, and elementary school was 1 through 6, and the third, fourth, and fifth graders would eat separate from the. No, I'm sorry, the first, second, and third graders. That's what I meant to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Eat separate from the fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, and
Okay.
so everybody in the show was a sixth grader. So the undergraduates, so to speak, they would be sitting having lunch while we are on the stage rehearsing because the
Okay.
stage was in the cafeteria in the elementary school. It
Okay.
wasn't a big full size stage, just enough, to accommodate, the gatherings of the assemblies and all this kind of thing. So
Okay.
um, we're up there, going through our number, and the little kids, they liked it a lot, and they used to follow me around the playground. Like, that's the guy in
Wow.
the play. That's the guy.
Okay.
And it dawned on me that I was doing something that people liked. As a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I was only in the sixth grade myself. You want to be liked, I guess. And when you see people react positively to what you're doing, you go, I wonder what that's about. So we did the show. We took it over to the junior high school, which had a bigger facility, a bigger auditorium and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, and all the parents and friends of the school and everybody's there. And it's
Okay.
a big event. And I did very well and got a lot of attention. And after that, the woman who directed the play, a sixth grade teacher named Miss Robinson, pulled me aside
Mm-hmm.
and said, Brent, you need to think about becoming an actor. Now, mind you, I'm going to date myself. So
Wow.
this was like 1963 in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh,
And
wow.
my mother, who was a school teacher,
Uh-huh.
hated that the woman ever said
Right.
something like that.
Right. Like,
you know,
what?
what? The skinny little black kid, the skinny little dark skinned boy, you
Yeah.
know. But I'm looking at Portier, back in
Okay.
those days, a
Okay.
tall
Okay.
dark skinned guy. But incredibly handsome. You know, here I am, a character actor, basically. You know, and so she told me this. She said, I remember she said, you have a good speaking voice, you
Hmm.
have good timing, you know,
Okay.
uh, and you have something that people like. You should think about it. And I started researching it. I started
Okay.
going to the library, and
Okay.
I went to a place. There used to be a place in the city called the News Mart,
Okay.
and you could go there on like on a Tuesday and
Right.
pick up the Sunday papers from various cities. And
Sure.
I used to go there and get the New York Times and read the arts and leisure section every
Hmm.
week.
Okay.
And I started becoming aware of what was going on in New York with the Negro Ensemble Company that was getting started, the new Lafayette Theater,
Okay.
uh, the new Heritage Theater. You know, all these things were going on because the civil
Sure.
rights movement was at its apex then, you
Yes.
know. And so a lot of the Black arts groups were doing material that reflected the struggle, you know. So there
Okay.
were a lot more actors doing things, and if you didn't research it, you would know that all of this was going on, you know.
Right.
So I made up my mind at an early age that New York was the place to go, and so that was my goal from that point on, was how do I get out of Little Rock? How do I get from Little Rock to New York? And it all came together, but that's how it all started for me. And you get bit by that bug, and I would do things in my hometown
Okay.
growing up, you know,
Okay.
that came up. You know, there's a place called the Arkansas Arts Center, and
Okay.
I was the first guy of color to work on the main stage in the lead role there, you know, in a children's theater piece called Toad of Toad Hall. And I
Okay.
would go there for classes, acting classes, and all of this kind of thing. So it became my. I used to run with a group of kids who were overachievers, and
Okay.
you know, and so this became my thing. You know,
Good thing.
one was the track star, one was two were track stars. They were others were, you know, we would compete for the best grades, and I never got the best grades. I got good grades, but not the best. And but this was the thing that kind of
So it
stood out
pushed
for
you.
me. Yeah, it pushed me to keep going with it, even though I didn't have anything to look at besides Sidney and Sammy Davis Jr. You know, growing up, you know,
That's
Sammy come on the tube and everybody goes, "Sammy's on, Sammy's on." You
yeah,
run and look
but
at the Ed
those
Sullivan show.
those are two. Woo!
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
even though you say they were the only two, but man, what two to
What
me?
a two they what a two
I
they
mean,
were. You know,
Sammy did everything. I mean,
oh
God,
man, I can
Sammy did.
remember coming watching him on the Ed Sullivan show, watch him sing and then jump on the drums and play the drums and then go tap dance and then go, you know, the guy was he was a dramatic actor, he was a comedic actor, he was, you
Yeah,
know,
Sammy did
but you
every
know, he was doing it from the time he was like 5 years
5 years
old.
old. Yeah, and
You know,
that's what
so
made me ask you that question because looking at when you were growing up, like you said, in the height of the civil rights movement,
uh-huh.
and then here's this arts thing, right?
Right, right,
And it's like and where you're from, Little Rock, Arkansas, was also a pivotal part of the civil
right,
rights movement. And
right,
knowing at that time our people stressing education, being educated, which is correct, nothing wrong with that. But then I was
right,
when I looked you up, I was like, okay, so how did he find the art? And that was my
right.
reason for the
Yeah,
question because it
because you
wasn't
knew
for
that was a distance to travel. I mean,
right. Yeah,
that
it
coming
wasn't
from
to
there,
say yeah, it
yeah,
wasn't just to say okay, how did you get started? It was more
right,
like looking at the time dispensation that you were born in and
yeah,
and you been a young man because I tell people all the time we have Martin Luther King, we had Malcolm X, but it was actually your generation that actually was making the push. They was giving the direction, but it was your generation because listen, before my mom passed, she was born in the same time you were. I used to tell all the time. I say, look, your son. You know what? I don't know if I could. Martin talking about being nonviolent. I'm like, bro, look, hey, but then
yeah,
again, watch this. But that's someone born in 71, as far
uh-huh,
as me.
uh-huh.
But
Right, right, right.
if you were born, then you adjust because you're born
Yeah,
in that time
yeah,
and into someone tells you you can't drink out of that fountain, or you can't
Yeah.
go, you got to go this way, you can't go, like, and then to see where you are now, to just to see, how God had his hand on you, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, he certainly did, you know. I mean, he certainly did because when I look back now at all the doors that opened up in my hometown that allowed me to, that play I mentioned that I did at the Arkansas Arts Center was directed by a young lady from Boston
hmm
who was just out of college, and there wasn't much stuff to do. And I had written a little one-act play that I thought we
okay,
were going to do with my high school.
okay,
And they read it, and it was really about my experiences integrating a junior high school and feeling like left out, and feeling like I didn't belong at the white school, I didn't belong at the black school. So I wrote a little play about that. And I guess they didn't want to do it because it was dealing with those issues or whatever, or maybe it was no good. I thought it was pretty good. And so I tell a friend of mine, I had a little 56 Chevy. This
okay,
is when I was in high school. I tell
okay,
a friend of mine, hey man, come with me. I'm going to go over to the art center because I had been there taking some acting classes and stuff. And I said, I'm going to get them to direct my play, to put my play up.
sure,
And we rode out there after school one day. And I walk into, I see the theater's full. They got all these kids
hmm
in the theater, and this little lady, she was a little short, the lady from Boston. She was up there, and we sat in the back and watched
okay,
these kids audition for this play.
okay.
And I started heckling them, you know, you ain't no good, get off the stage. you
Oh
know,
wow.
because I don't know why. I guess I don't know why. I mean, but I started heckling, and the lady says to me, she says, "You think you can do better?" I go, "Yeah."
Yeah, yeah, of course
And she said,
I
"Well, come on up here." She gives me the script, and I started I started doing it. She was liking what I was doing,
uh
and my boy Larry, who wrote out there with me, I said, Larry, Larry can play this other part here. He can play this part. Come on up, Larry. We took
Larry.
over the audition. So Larry got a part. I got the lead part. I told her about two girls I knew at my high school who should come down, and they came down and they got parts. And it turned out to be a landmark, groundbreaking productions in terms of the diversity that was in it, and it happened basically because she wasn't from that town. She was just
Wow.
out of school, 23, 24-year-old old girl from
hmm
um from Boston, you know.
Okay.
So she became a good friend. And she was the one who I know about this school in Boston, Emerson College. You should apply there because I was supposed to go to school in St. Louis.
Okay.
But I'm thinking if I want to be an actor, it's better for me to get on the East Coast, you
Right.
know. So she turned me on to someone who had a summer job at Tufts University
Okay.
with a theater company, a children's theater company. I go up there. I'm assistant technical director. I don't know what that means. I ended up
Okay.
being more like a camp counselor.
Okay.
And that lady got me into helped me get into Emerson, the one I worked for in Boston, who I met through the one in Little Rock. They were friends.
Okay.
So I get into the Emerson College in Boston. I meet this guy, the admissions guy, and he says, I didn't put all this together for a long time, and he says, well, you can come in January because you're applying late in the summer, and you have to come in January. I said, well, I'll go back home, do a semester at home, and come back. So I did that. I went back home, and I'm
Okay.
getting letters from them saying everything is cool. You can come, blah blah
Okay.
blah. My mom and my dad, they threw a big going away party for me. I remember I got this big leather coat to wear in the cold Boston air.
Okay. Okay.
I get up there and I go to the school.
Uh-huh.
Nobody knows who I am. Nobody ever heard of me. Like, what? You're supposed to be going. I said, when I got the letters, I got well, that dude had been fired.
Oh
And I guess he
man.
didn't he didn't set it up right and nobody knew. So I'm saying this story because it's something that you have as a young person and probably as a young person listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this when you really have a desire to do something and a faith,
Hmm.
you go for it, and you don't really think about anything but what you want, and you
Right.
don't give up. So I called the lady I had worked for that summer,
Okay.
and I said, I told her what happened. She says, "Well, come on out to the house. You can stay here with us." It was a nice Jewish family in
Okay.
Brookline,
Okay.
and we've remained friends over the years. And so she said, you work it out. So I didn't know I didn't know what to do. So I would go there, and I would sit in the hall of the reception area, the
Okay.
foyer of the admissions office. I would sit there,
Okay.
and I sat there for like 3 days, man. People coming and going. 3 days. I would get up like it was my job. I get up in the morning,
Okay.
I go down there, and I sit all day. Then finally, a student came by who said,
Okay.
"I've been seeing you sitting here for 3 days." And I told him my story. He took me to meet a guy who was
Hmm.
the new admissions guy.
Okay.
Sheldon Forrest was his name. And I told him my story, and he said, give me some time. I'm gonna work this out." So I got in, I got my grants, I got a little bit of a loan, I got aid, all kinds of aid.
Oh,
And like
wow.
I remember on a Friday, he said you can move into the dorm on Monday. And I look back on it now and I think to myself, man, God was really looking out for me because I didn't want to go home. I had a big party, I had presents and all this kind of thing. I wasn't going to go back home. Uh, but I realized, I said, if I had really understood how blessed I was and how fortunate I was,
Right.
I would have been a better student.
Well, that's the other part of being young too.
Yeah,
Like you said, you just don't know. But
you just,
what you did know is you weren't going back home.
yeah,
You was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
find a way to make it work.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
what I would ask you, and this is a side question, uh,
Uh-huh.
which is where's that movie at?
That movie, the movie I just
It was a
told
play.
you
You
about.
wrote no, because see, you wrote a play on your life.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I'm upping it one. Where's the movie for?
That's a good question, man. Never thought of it like that.
You
That's a
gotta
good
you
question.
because that part right there to show, especially in that, because a lot of times when we see peace movies,
Uh-huh.
in the time frame that you was born, we always look at either it's a historical, um somebody in sports, right?
Right, right,
or
right, right.
or we're just looking at the civil rights in itself, and
Right, right, right,
who
right.
was part of the movement we need to
Right,
know
right,
about.
right, right.
But I think your story would be so interesting to see how you were born in that time, what
Uh-huh.
you went through, help integrate a school,
Uh-huh.
then
Uh-huh.
turn around and you get introduced to the arts, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
how just that part where you left and was in Boston, and you're just sitting there, and it's so funny because the Bible talks about wait on the Lord, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so sometimes we really don't know what that means. Okay, wait, I'm waiting. I mean, what,
Right, right,
and
right,
it's
right.
almost like you were waiting. You didn't know what you was waiting on,
Didn't know what was gonna happen. They
but
had no idea.
God said, "Okay,
Yeah,
He
yeah,
wants this,"
yeah.
and then sent the answer to you.
Right. And
So,
when I think back on it, the woman who came down to Little Rock to direct the play,
mhm,
you know, I mean, the doors kept opening. And then she sent me to Boston with her friend. Her friend took me in. Then I met a teacher at Emerson
okay,
who introduced me to a prominent person in New York, so that when I left school, I had some.
uh,
It kept unfolding. You see, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're young, doors can open for you and opportunities can come to you, and you don't understand the magnitude of them. You can
mhm,
be so, and it's natural and it's a good thing. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. You
right.
can be so focused on what you think you want that you don't stop and say thank you God, and then let that humble you a little bit. That makes you work even harder and aim even higher.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because you realize the possibilities that your faith and your belief that you have innately because you're young. But as you get older and this stuff starts chipping away at you, you lose that youthful exuberance, that youthful, you know, confidence, But I think by acknowledging
Mm-hmm.
the little miracles in all of our lives, you maintain it, you hold on to it.
You maintain it, right? I was about to say that's me now, even though I'm not in my 20s. but
you,
but
you
but
look about 30.
But no, 51, 51.
uh,
Well, listen, I'm 51, but this Beijing right here, I had but
yeah.
tighten it up there. But
Right,
what
right,
what you're saying is it is something, because I always tell people one of my downfalls, I don't promote myself as well, because I don't want to take away what I know what God is doing, because I
right.
don't have a team. So
Uh-huh.
it was me that reached out to you.
Right,
There's
right,
no, you
right,
know what I'm saying?
right,
Of
right,
course, I'm the
right.
whole. So, like you said, I know how to cherish the moments, to sit and
Hmm.
say the second interview I ever done when I started this 3 years ago was Bill Dukes. Like
Uh-huh.
that's crazy. Like I really don't even have any, like all what I sent you. See, I built up to have something to send you. Bill Dukes, I had nothing to send. Only thing
Right,
they asked
right,
me to
right.
send was questions. Okay, what's your
Uh-huh.
question? So
Right, right.
to your point, what you're saying, I take the time now to recognize those moments and champion that. Especially,
Hmm.
I love it when people say, like after that, they'll say, "Man, how did you get a hold of Brent Jennings?" Don't worry about it.
Hmm.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. They be like, "Who you know?" That I know the Lord. That's who I know.
Right, right,
You know
right,
him. You
right,
know everybody.
right, right, right.
But my next question for you, when you were
Uh-huh.
coming along, when you got to New York, and
Right.
you were doing everything, what was, when you started to get to TV and film, what was at that time, what was the auditioning process like for you, being a new person in the business trying to get your feet wet? What was auditioning like for you?
That's an interesting question. Uh, the auditioning process is pretty constant and it hasn't changed that much over the years.
Okay.
Uh, except now we're doing it on, social media,
Sure.
or through Zoom and all of this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Self taping and turning into tape is always was live. But I'll put it like this: the thing that just came to my mind was that when you got the opportunity to audition for something
Mm-hmm.
that you liked, that you wanted to be a part of, it was a very positive experience because that was the only way. That was the only way until your work is known
Mm-hmm.
by some people. That's the only way to get employment. You know, because people are going to look at a range of people for any particular part, and you want to show that you can do a particular part, and also you're motivated. In my case, a lot of times by just a project. Like
Okay.
I, you want to be a part of it because it speaks to something in you artistically, that makes you want to express yourself in the way that you would be required to in this particular project, or the
Okay.
project has a meaning. Like you mentioned, A Lesson Before Dying, when you said it been one of your favorite projects that I was connected to. It was one of those projects like that. That's an example of what I'm talking about. It was like that's something I was very adamant and very gratified that I could be a part of that project because of what the project was saying, the part of the country that the project was taking place in. I felt I knew that preacher. I felt I understood what he was about, and that he wasn't your stereotypical TV black minister who,
Mm-hmm.
like, who was being a joke. Even though he was an illiterate man, he was serving his community. He was convicted in his beliefs, and he felt that he was doing what was right and what was good for the people that he prayed for, who he knew were going through an uphill battle in that segregated society that they were in. And all he knew was the Lord. All he knew was heaven. All he knew was,
Yeah.
You know, we got something promised to us, and let's maintain. You know, let's hold steady. You know, so I was, and it was about that show was about community. It was about all these people coming together to lift up this brother who was wrongly convicted and being put to death.
You
And
you
I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful story, you know.
you segue. It was a question there, but you jumped to it already. So listen. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go on and get to it. So
Okay, okay.
you see, I changed the background since once you
Yeah,
went
I
to it.
see. Yeah,
The
yeah.
reason I chose this part because you had another scene with Don Cheadle talking
Uh-huh.
to him, but the reason I chose this one because it was so poignant when you asked him. You said, "Have you ever seen the scars on your
On
grandmother's
her,
knees?" And he
on
said, "No." He said, and that's when your finger came. He said, "Because
her.
she didn't want you to." And
Right, right, right.
the sacrifice. So where this took me when you talked about the sacrifice that she had to make for him, and that
Yeah.
you're the next one. You're the hope. It put me, and it took me back to sitting with my grandmother. And it
Mm-hmm.
took me to now, this is why she's got a smile on her face. This is
Mm-hmm.
why she's
Mm-hmm.
looking at me
Mm-hmm.
differently because
Mm-hmm.
it's the hope that I'm the change that
Right, right.
she's been looking for. It's like I didn't into your artistry in this moment because young people when you talk to your grandparents or something you're like, man, grandmama don't, man, grandmama
Yeah.
don't be tripping, man, all this pressure they put
Yeah.
on me. And I love the movie because first of all, just the title. I told my daughter, I said, you gotta go look at this. A lesson before dying. So in other words, no,
Right.
you dying. No,
Yeah, yeah.
he wasn't going to get Mikhail Pfeiffer was not getting out of this. This
Yeah,
is
no.
he's innocent, but
Right.
there's a lesson he has to learn
Right, right. And
before dying.
yeah, and everybody in that community learned a lesson through him. They learned about dignity and holding on to their dignity, and not letting the circumstances that they were living in, you know, take that dignity and grace away from them. You know, I thought it was a beautiful story. I had read the book, and the way I got that part was very. Uh,
That was the question actually, is how did you get that? How did you get that?
well, I was doing a movie called Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, and I was sitting on the set reading A
Hmm.
Lesson Before Dying, the book, the Ernest Gaines book.
Right. Uh-huh.
In between takes, I would be reading that book. And the director of Life, Ted Demme, the late Ted Demme, unfortunately, uh, came up to me and said, "Hey, Brent, I got the rights to this book. And we're going to
Mm,
do it with Don Cheadle."
okay.
He said, "Read it and tell me who you want to play." And I said, "Okay." And I read it. So well, I knew I wasn't going to get Don's part. And I didn't see, you know, I said Mackay's part was, I knew I wasn't going to get that, too old for that
Yeah, I was about to say
at
you.
the time. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. And at that time, I was young for the preacher, but I said, the minister, you
Hmm.
know, I think that's what the part I would like to play. And he said, well, um, they're doing a draft of the script. When I get it, I'm going to give it to you and let you read it. You tell me what you think about it. I said, okay. We went on with shooting our movie Life. Um, and a little while later, he gives me the script. And so he said, read it. Tell me what you think about it. I said, okay. I read the script. And then so I went to him to talk about it. He says, well, you know, write it out. Write some notes for me.
Okay.
I said, come on, Ted, don't mess with me, man. What are you talking about? You know, he
Right.
said, no, no. He said, I'm busy. You see, I'm directing the movie, you know, come on. And I said, all right, all right, all right. So I did about 3 pages of notes. Of course, I'm keying on my character too as
Sure.
I do the
Sure.
notes, you know. And And he told me to put him in his trailer when I was done, and I did. And we went on and we finished life and never said anything else about it.
Okay.
So I was hanging out with him after we shot the movie. We still didn't even say anything about it. And one day, the phone rings. I got to tell
Okay.
this part because it's funny. The phone rings,
Uh-huh.
and he says, "Hello, is this Brent Jennings?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "This is a very important white man calling." And I knew it was him then. Then I said, "Hold on a minute." And I put the phone like that and sat there for a while.
Okay.
And like I said, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I was busy. Now who is this?" He's like, so he's laughing by that time because he
Uh,
says I'm a very important white man. I put him on hold,
put
you
them
know.
on hold, right.
But I didn't hang up.
And then hang
So,
up. I just put you on hold. Just be
and so
patient.
he's laughing. He's laughing. He says, "Look, the movie is going to go. You know, tell your people." Um, and I was going to have to go read for it. So I said, "All right, okay." I'm thinking he's, you know, so this is once again, you're talking about an audition.
Right.
What do you, so I said, okay, I got to prepare for this audition because I want this part.
Right.
So I go in and I read and didn't hear anything else about it. And then finally I heard that I got it. Then he called me and said, look, you had it all along, but we had to do it that way, you know, because they had R.C. Davis, the late R.C. Davis, in mind for that.
Oh,
But it
wow.
turns out that R.C., the story I heard, it turns out that R.C., when Ruby was working, his wife, Ruby D,
Right. Yeah, I know
he
what you're
would
talking about.
travel. Yeah, yeah. He would travel with her to
Okay.
be with her and help her, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And it was a conflict in the schedule. So he passed on it. And I got it, you know. That's I heard that through some grapevine. But anyway, it ended up in my hands and it was is one of my favorite projects. And I'm glad that Ozzy was being good to his wife.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm glad it was one of your favorite projects because I looking at your skill, the way you deliver that, and a lot of times, and of course now because my mother, passed on, and my father,
Same.
father,
Yeah.
that movie at the end makes me cry when Don Cheadle is sitting at the schoolyard and
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
Sitting on
read
the-
the letter. He's read the
Uh-huh.
letter that Mikel Pfeiffer left
Right.
behind,
Right.
and it's like, man, it's one of those pieces that leaves you like, what do I do with these emotions? Like, what do I do with
Uh-huh.
it? Because
Right. Right.
it's a even now what I did love about it is how brilliant our people are in that time.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Because when his grandmother went to ask a favor to to get visiting rights, because remember they
Uh-huh.
didn't want him to have no visitors or nothing,
Right. Right. Right.
and
Right.
and
Right.
the white lady was like, I can't get involved at all that, and she started recalling stuff back in the past, like, look,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
such and such and such and such. Well, I talked to him. I talked like, yeah, she got this secret that she know that you forgot that she know it, and you don't want to
Uh-huh.
tell it. You might want to go on and make sure I get them visitors, and then you worked with Cicely Tyson
Uh-huh.
also in
Uh-huh.
that, and I mean just a brilliant film, a brilliant cast, and it
Yeah.
leads me before we get to life, because
Uh-huh.
before you did this movie, and this is, and when I get to life now, then I'll tell you why I said what I said about theater. Uh,
Uh-huh.
you got to tell me, how did you play this? How did you get this far? How did you? Yeah, see, I've been watching you. I've been watching you. I've been watching you. Another 48 hours. You were,
Yeah.
brother,
Yeah.
you were ruthless in this picture now.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a heck of a project. I like that project. Yeah, that character. You know, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say about that character. He was I came up with that performance because it seemed like to me
Hmm.
getting your earshot off by a shotgun was impossible. So I kept thinking, like, how am I going to play this? Because this don't make any sense. You can't get your ear blown. So I said, I'm just going to have fun with it, you know.
Okay.
And so I just played this guy as just indomitable, you know. This guy just, you know, it was like a robot, you know. It was just he just
Yeah, he
had
had
one
no fear.
goal,
He had
had no
no
fear.
fear.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just what I went with. And so I'm going to see how far that goes. And it ended up making sense because otherwise it just would not have made any sense. There was no other way to play that guy than to be fearless in the face of you know, death.
I mean, yeah, because even this scene here, I was going to choose another scene where you just the way you were talking to people, and
Uh-huh.
which I might put it in the clip when it come out when I edit it. But
Uh-huh.
what made the reason I chose this background, because even with you holding you're still fearless, like you're still going on
Right,
about
right, right,
what you
right.
got to talk about, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
at this
He's
point
saying
you were
complete
talking
the
to,
job.
yeah, what you were talking to two crazy dudes, like these dudes were
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
these dudes these dudes were crazy, and so when you go from that character and then you get to this guy here. This guy here,
Uh-huh.
I had to find this one. I had to find this scene here. So when you get to Hop and Bob in life, the reason I said to you earlier, I said he's got to be a theater actor
Uh-huh.
because all these three characters are vastly different,
Right,
and
right.
only a person that got a theater background can pull three different characters. Three, I mean, okay, so in this movie, you brought your comedic chops.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting here like, okay, following your career. I'm like, so where did this come from? Like the comedic, like where is it? Because I mean, you was funny. So
Yeah, yeah.
and especially when you talking about, okay, you got Eddie Murphy, you got Marlon, you got Bernie Mac, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Anthony Anderson, like,
Yeah.
and then you got your space of your character, and you got to be funny with that character, not trying to be anybody else. And so when I look at, I say, this guy has to be a theater actor. So what did the theater do for you,
Wow,
being able to play these characters and these three different type characters? What did theater do for you?
Otis, I mean, I don't even know how to answer that question. That is really a tough question. I mean, because theater is your foundation, and theater is like theater is like the primer, you know, it's what you learn on, and you learn how to just be committed to the character that you're playing and finding what makes that character tick, you know. Uh, I don't know. I mean, theater just it, there's a commitment to the craft that I think helps create what you're talking about.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, in Hoppin' Bob, it had to do with the way he moved. You know, um, his relationship with the head trustee. You
Right.
know,
Right.
played by the Cassavetes kid. You know, it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to
I get
say.
it. No, the way, because the way I found out, like
It's
I've been
also the writing, Otis. It's also the
okay.
characters are so well drawn
Mm-hmm.
that the actor can only take but so much credit. You take A Lesson Before Dying and that character
Mm-hmm.
of the minister, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you go at him with some conviction. And we talked earlier about how this guy was serving his community
Mm-hmm.
and was trying to save his soul and trying to help him learn that he had dignity and that he was
Right.
going to be with God. I mean, so he had this. He was an illiterate guy, but he had this passion for his work and for his people. Like he says in that speech that you referred to, he says, "I know my people.
Yeah.
I know my people." You know, so he was real, you know, and I think that's the whole thing. I mean, you know that commitment, and Hoppin' Bob was a guy who was just doing his best to keep his job. And, when it came time to shoot one of the inmates when he was trying to
It
get
was
away,
just-
he didn't do it. He didn't do it.
now that's the part most people miss, where even though he had a job, everybody was like a family, and he had in the hierarchy of where he
Right, right,
placed, to the point that, like you said, when it came time, when Miguel's character,
right,
Biscuit, takes
right,
off
right,
running,
right,
he can't bring himself.
right,
But this scene right here, he states, I'm getting ready to shoot me somebody, but
right,
then
right,
when it
right,
came,
right.
so I think that's, and to the point where you talk about acting, and you and a few others, I've noticed this. Also, the brilliant part of the acting, it's not just your lines that you're saying and the way you're delivering. Your voice changed,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
because you don't sound like Hopping Bob, your regular voice.
Right, right, right,
See,
right, right,
sometimes people miss that. They see you, but they don't understand you don't
right, right.
talk like that either. So that's another part of acting, the brilliancy of it. Because I remember interviewing Patrick Malone, who
Uh-huh,
played on A Different World, and in the last season, and he had, his character could be funny and then get serious in one scene,
uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
just like your same thing, theater background. And
Right, right.
I've had a few people that has that theater background that stated to me what you just said, which is, it is the foundation that
Mm-hmm.
allows you, because they talk about being on stage, and if you could, elaborate maybe with your experience, they talked about being on stage and how you have to not only play on stage, but you have to play with the audience, because maybe how long, like, say if it's some comedic or funny on stage,
Uh-huh.
how long to play with that based on the feedback that
Right.
the
The
audience
audience
is
is
giving
another
you.
character. The
So
audience
you,
becomes another
right.
character.
So they talked about this dance that you do
Right,
with your counterparts on stage, but also the
right.
audience.
And it's not a conscious thing. It's part of the whole process. And it's an unspoken kind of alliance between the actors and the audience. The audience is listening to you, and you're getting your cues from the audience in terms of how your story that you're telling is being received, the pace that is being received, when to speak a little louder, when to bring it down. It becomes this dance between the audience and the players on stage. You
Gotcha.
know, um, and yeah, so that's the beauty of it, of theater. That audience is a character, and that audience is telling the actors when to speak louder, when to go faster, everything,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
and it becomes to be where the audience is working along with the actor, and the actor is like they're massaging each other.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What would what is your feeling of your career thus far? Like, how do you feel from the kid that left Arkansas to where you are now? What is your feeling on your career?
Well, I think I've had a decent career. I mean, I think I'm a character actor. I'm not the leading man type of guy. That's why you can see the variation in those roles you're talking about. How they're all different, as opposed to the leading man who's pretty much, the same guy over and over in different circumstances, but the same guy. Whereas I'm more inclined to have parts that allow me to kind of change from role to role, like we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, like, I've had a series of people calling up lately who want to do interviews, and they've been younger guys who say, I saw you when I was growing up, and I'm thinking, what? Okay. And I've started to appreciate my career more when I kind of run across people who've been watching me that I didn't think were watching me, or I don't think about that. You tend to think of in terms of what you're trying to get that you haven't
True.
got, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't think about what you already have done.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have, like you know, clips of things that I've done and want to talk about specific things, and you start to look at it and say, well, it's a pretty rich body of work, you know. In my younger days, you know, I got roles that I felt were meant for me, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I did a great job with them. And not every role was equal, but when it came time to rise to the occasion, I think I showed my talent, you know, and I've been in things that I was proud and happy to be in, you know, from the very beginning until now, you know. So I've been able to sustain myself for a long time and continue in it. And that's all you ask for, particularly if you're a character actor. You just ask for jobs to keep coming in, so that as long as you can do it, you can do it. Um, so I'm very satisfied with it. You know, I'm not wanting for anything, thank God. Uh, um, you know, my family's doing well. My wife is an actress. She's working her tail off this year, you know, so she's in Toronto working on a project now, you know, just
Okay.
did a movie a little while back. So the Tom Hanks movie that just came out, she's in that.
Okay.
So everybody, my sons are doing well, you know, so they're working. So it's all good.
That's all good. Yeah, ain't no need to complain if ain't nothing to complain
Right,
about.
right,
Like you
right.
said, sometimes you just lost for words. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah,
good.
yeah. You know. So
I
you
would
know, I
love to.
mean,
I would love to see, like I said, that the play that you wrote, develop it into a movie.
you're talking
You
about the
know,
story that I told you
yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm seriously, and I would love to. It's one role because I think it would be a combination, to be honest with you, of the
Uh-huh.
three characters that I just showed. I would love to see you in some type of. It could be. I don't care what kind of movie. It could be a Lifetime, Hallmark. I don't care. The
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
big screen. It doesn't matter. But
Uh-huh.
I know you have it in you. I would love to see you play a schizophrenic character
Oh, yeah, that would be nice.
because
Yeah.
you would at some point be funny, and then
Uh-huh.
some point like you're deranged.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Some point, kind of like the preacher, like it. You would.
So you're saying put some of those facets of all of those characters you've seen
Well, I mean, you
and put them
already
into
know a
one.
character. Yeah, a character like that, you would have to bring different emotions, different, bring different
Right.
things to it. And I've always saw that, and that's why I knew you had to have theater background because one of the things I asked this of Michael Collier once.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Uh
Michael, he's a hoot.
yeah, because he did it in at a house party, I think two or three, one of them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Is when you said you played with your characters that you played, is how do you stretch out the, like, take life for instance, right?
Uh-huh.
So you got all
Uh-huh.
these heavy hitter comedians, right?
Right.
In this movie, big project, you already know it, ain't nobody got to tell
Uh-huh.
you. and
Uh-huh.
and then you were doing the work, but how did you make your character that rememberable? There's everybody I know that has seen life and watches life, we're going to quote Hopping Bob.
Uh-huh.
Because
Uh-huh.
for yourself, we're gonna talk about the gun line. If we go
You
no,
know
talk
that
about
was,
the gun line, boss.
I improv that line. That line just came out of nowhere. I just popped out of my mouth while we were shooting. Yeah. So what was the question? Were you
No, I
asking
was
me a
saying,
question?
I was
Oh,
saying, how do you own the space that you're given? Like you said, you're not the star of the movie, but you've had
right, right.
an uncanny an ability to take what you have, and your characters are always memorable.
Well, man, I gotta thank God for that. I mean, I just I just do my job, you know, and I do it to the fullest that I can do it, you know.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'm not trying to do anything but that character. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm just trying to fulfill it
Mm-hmm.
to its maximum potential.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not trying to take anything from any other actor. And I'm trying. The better we all are, the better the project is.
Right.
I actually got advice on several things from Eddie Murphy while we were shooting Life.
Okay.
Why don't you try this line? I think this would be funny. I ain't nice like boss. I'll come down there and slap the black
Well,
off your ass. That came from Eddie. Eddie told me that line. He said, try this,
you
So he knew what I was doing. He
right.
liked what I was doing. And so he gave me a line that fit the character. So it was one of those creative kind of environments, where you're working with people who are not intimidated by what you have to offer.
Right. Right.
And there's no way you can make Eddie feel threatened,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
my
So
favorite, one of my favorite lines, you just made me think of it. It's when you said, "Ain't nobody gonna bother y'all tonight,"
oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
take the fun out the courtship. Well, I was like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
when you said that, I'm like, see, that's why you don't go to jail. That right there, see that right there,
Right,
that's why
right,
you stay out of
right,
jail.
right.
What you
Yeah,
mean? Ain't
yeah.
nobody gonna bother me tonight? What you just put a mental thing in somebody's head where in their heads where it's like you don't know
Yeah,
when it's coming, but it's coming. But you
right,
just
right,
know ain't
right.
nobody gonna mess with you tonight. And you gonna be
Yeah,
all right
yeah.
tonight. Now tomorrow might
Yeah, 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 yeah.
my final question for you is
Okay.
what's important to you?
Man, love, my family, God. I'm still learning more and more about him, and leaning on him more and more, understanding him more and more. And he is real.
I'm with you.
He got to be in your heart. It's got to be in your heart.
Gotta be, yeah,
And
gotta
that's
be.
where he lives. And that's what we need, in this world. And and that's pretty much it, man. Just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And like I was saying earlier about, I was saying how we all good, the family,
Hmm. Right.
hoping and praying that that remains to be the case. But we know that life
Yeah.
is life. It's
Hmm.
got its ups and downs, and we hope and pray that whatever downs we encounter, we have enough strength and perseverance to remember that lesson I learned back as a kid, sitting in that foyer waiting to
We'll
see who was
see.
coming.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing today.
Wait. You gotta
So
wait on him. Yeah.
you got to wait on it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
Well, when time permits, I would love to bring you back on with you and your wife. I do this thing. I did it with Shirley Murdoch and her husband. I did it
Uh-huh,
with
uh-huh,
Trisha Mann Grant and Tony Grant. And,
uh-huh.
and basically it's just marriages with people who are
Right, right,
in the same field.
right, right,
And
right,
and how do you make it work and all that,
right,
not
right,
being
right,
just so I would love to, when you all schedule permits to
right.
bring both
Okay.
of you back on the show and do a part
Well,
three. I've got two in the book. I haven't got a part three.
well, I'm
And
glad I got on first. That way, I don't have to worry about doing any talking. He's a talker, so I'll be. You'll be wondering why is Brent so quiet? Well,
trust me, I'm married. I know. I know.
so she'll get excited and she'll be talking. So that'll be nice. That'll be nice. I'll
Okay.
let her know that that's in the works.
Okay. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
blessing us with your presence and coming on the show. Continue much success. Stay safe out there and stay blessed,
yeah,
man. And we love you.
yeah, yeah. Same to you. Same to you. And
Thank you.
thanks for having me on the show. We've had a good time.
Good time. Peace.
Yeah, yeah. Peace.